by everyone and are remembered by everyone. That's what we are remembering today as we come here to Chato to pray for and pay our respects to the late President Dr. Magufuli, who rests in this grave here with the belief that he rests in the hands of God.
Some of the senior national leaders who attended the mass lauded the late Dr. John Magufuli as a role model, pan-Africanist and visionary leader.
We have gathered here today to remember him, to pray for him, and to thank God for the life and the many gifts he bestowed upon the late Dr. John Pombe Magufuli. During his lifetime, he touched many people through his service and his distinguished leadership. Among other things, God blessed him with the gift of leadership and a strong ability to speak and tract on what he believed was beneficial for the nation and its people.
Tunamkumbuka hayati Rais Magufuli kuwa alikuwa mtetezi mkubwa wa wanyonge.
We remember the late President Magufuli as a strong defender of the underprivileged, especially ordinary citizens, by standing up for their rights and addressing their challenges. He believed in protecting the nation's resources and ensuring they benefit Tanzanians themselves. He led the fight against corruption and the theft of public resources, efforts that greatly contributed to strengthening discipline within the public service.
Katika kuimarika kwa nidhamu katika utumishi wa umma na kulinda rasilimali za umma.
The daughter of the late Tanzanian President Dr. John Magufuli, Jessica Magufuli, says her father instilled in his children the necessity of hard work to gain respect in the community.
But for us at home, our father was a person of discipline, humility, and strong faith in Almighty God. He taught us that there is no success without hard work. He used to say that if you want respect in life, you must work hard.
The government has allocated 100 million shillings to complete the construction of the Museum of Dr. John Magufuli, located in Chato District, Geita region. Dr. Nchimbi has also led a fundraising for the construction of a church where more than 400 million shillings have been raised.
As Tanzania marks the 5th anniversary of the passing of its 5th president, John Pombe Magufuli, the nation reflects on the life and the legacy of the leader, remembered for his uncompromising work ethic and his bold push for development. I earlier on prepared the following report regarding the day. Nicknamed the Bulldozer, JPM, and the man of action, the late Dr. John Pombe Magufuli remains one of Tanzania's most talked about leaders, who is remembered for his firm leadership style, relentless work ethic, and an administration that placed development at the center of governance. Today, March 17, Tanzania's pause to remember the life and the legacy of the country's 5th president, whose leadership between 2015 and 2021 left a visible imprint on infrastructure, public service reform, and the national conversation about accountability and patriotism. Born on October 29, 1959 in Chato District in Tanzania's Geita region, the late President John Pombe Magufuli rose from humble beginnings to becoming one of the country's most influential political figures. He served as Tanzania's 5th president from 2015, ushering in a leadership style defined by the slogan, Hapa Kazi Tu. His administration emphasized discipline in public institutions and insisted that public resources, particularly taxpayers' funds, must translate directly into tangible development for the citizens. Under his leadership, Tanzania accelerated the implementation of several large-scale strategic infrastructure projects. Among the most notable one was the standard gauge railway project, designed to transform transport by linking the port of Dar es Salaam with inland regions and neighboring countries. Sections of the railway connecting Dar es Salaam, Morogoro and Dodoma are already operational, while construction continues towards other regions, including the Lake Zone area. In the energy sector, Magufuli's government initiated the Julius Nyerere hydropower project, one of the largest electricity generation projects in East Africa. The project was aimed at significantly boosting Tanzania's power generation capacity and supporting industrial growth, an objective that continues to shape the country's economic ambitions even today. His administration also prioritized the revival of the national carrier, Air Tanzania, purchasing new aircraft and expanding routes in an effort to restore the airline's presence in regional and international aviation. At the same time, major upgrades were made to Julius Nyerere International Airport, Terminal 3, and other regional airports to support the growth of air transport and tourism. Infrastructure development also reshaped Tanzania's urban and regional landscape. Projects such as the Ubungo Interchange Flyover, the Tanzanite Bridge in Dar es Salaam, and the Kigongo-Bosisi Bridge across Lake Victoria were designed to improve connectivity, reduce congestion, and strengthen economic integration within the country. Beyond infrastructure, Dr. Magufuli pushed forward the long-standing national vision to relocate government operations to Dodoma, the capital city, accelerating the transfer of ministries and institutions to the country's political capital. An idea first championed by Tanzania's founding president, Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere. Social policies were also part of his administration's agenda, where the government reinforced fee-free education for public primary and secondary schools, expanding access to education, and easing financial pressures on families across the country. Regionally, Tanzania under Magufuli advanced strategic economic cooperation, including agreements with Uganda to construct the East Africa Crude Oil Pipeline Project, a project intended to transport crude oil from Hoima in Uganda to the port of Tanga for export to international markets. As Tanzania reflects on his life today, the late Dr. John Pombe Magufuli's leadership continues to spark discussion, praised by supporters for decisive governance and bold development projects, while also remembered as a period that shaped national debates about leadership, accountability, and the direction of Tanzania's development. 5 years after his passing, on March 17, 2021, one thing remains certain. The imprint of Magufuli's presidency is still visible in Tanzania's infrastructure, policy direction, and the enduring national call for hard work and patriotism. Caroline Maleo, TBC News. And to discuss more on the anniversary and the overall legacy left by the late Dr. John Pombe Magufuli, I am joined live in the studio with a political analyst, Reeves Ngalemwa. Reeves Ngalemwa, welcome to TVC News.
Thank you for having me, Caroline.
Well, Reeves, as Tanzania remembers the late President John Pombe Magufuli, what key legacy do you believe he left for the country, Tanzania?
I think most importantly, his emphasis on patriotism, accountability, and development-driven leadership. He always wished to see results as per targets, but all the government operations and projects were aimed at easing an ordinary person's life. That was his motto, so to speak. So he'll be remembered for his, I would say, closely following up of projects and initiatives. And sometimes it was public, you know. He would visit your office, for example, and ask you direct questions on how you're delivering to the public. So that was remarkable.
You explained on how we will definitely remember Dr. John Magufuli, but how did his leadership style now reshape governance and public accountability within public institutions?
It greatly did. You see, he instilled work ethics to a level of every civil servant realizing that he is there for, he or she is there for serving the public. he wanted them to understand that. And if you could fall short of that, if that wasn't your priority, then it would be very difficult for you to work under Magufuli. And he insisted on strict, sometimes short deadlines, but then he wanted delivery with accuracy, but also the discipline in government spending. He made sure that resources, especially finances, he left this government people, having, they were now used to fiscal discipline and, not allowing expenditures that are not in a plan or are not beneficial to the community or to the people to be encouraged. They were not encouraged during his term. So I would say public servants had undergone, especially those not performing, they have undergone what you would call in Swahili, undergone through fire, pitia kitimoto. If you cannot sit there and deliver, then you would be in trouble. Yeah. So his whole focus was on the nation, to see that the nation benefits from what the government services and the departments are doing.
Now, leaving aside the leadership style that you actually explained, there are several major infrastructural projects that were actually launched during the leadership of Magufuli, and the current president, Dr. Samia, completed those infrastructure.
Yes.
Can you kindly tell us how significant are these projects in Tanzania's long-term development?
Those projects were significant, and if you can remember, when Magufuli was being sworn in office as the fifth phase president, we were still implementing the Tanzania Development Vision 2025. 25, yes. And I would kind of commend his, remarkable approach towards implementing a number of projects under that strategic vision. These infrastructures were key to fast or to realization of fast or speedy growth of our economy in Tanzania. As you remember, it was during his term when our country graduated into a low middle level income or economy, and these things were happening alongside the global COVID pandemic. So you see the contrast. Now the world is slowing down due to COVID pandemic, but Tanzania is realizing ascendance in its economy. So I think that was remarkable, and that is something to remember. How can a country in a developing world be doing very well economically while the rest of the world is suffering? So I think implementation of those projects, he made I would say it was courageous. That was a bold move to supervise fiscal resources, I would say, and ensure that most strategic infrastructures are being executed using our own financial resources. That was wonderful. He improved on TRI, for example, their procedures of collections, but also he was directly involved in supervising the expenditure of the government money. So yes, his bold approaches made Tanzania be where it was at a very difficult time economically in the whole world.
Now, looking at all that he did, and actually with how you explained that he helped our country to stand up in the midst of all that was happening, but we were able to stand up economically and rise. Now, 5 years on since his passing, how do you think history will remember John Magufuli's presidency within Tanzania's political landscape?
Magufuli will be remembered first for his mentorship capabilities. Remember, during his time, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, the incumbent president now of the United Republic of Tanzania, was his vice president.
Yes.
And they were able to deliver a number of those projects together. And I would say now, when Mama Samia took over, we can now see the great job done by Magufuli, that Mama Samia has been able to, complete most of those projects initiated by his predecessor, and even come up with much more projects. But we will also remember for his no-nonsense style of leadership, you see.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, if you don't have good reasons enough for whatever you wanted to see happening, I mean, you would be fired. You would be, rebuked. You would be taken care of, because he never had time to compromise with the low performers or with the corrupt people. We'll remember him also for his strict measures on corruption. It was not only narrating the intentions of curbing or combating corruption. He was also doing it. He had a number of implementations. He had a number of initiatives to combat corruptions. But we will also remember him, for his fast decision making, sometimes without regarding so much on how the other global views or remarks on what he chooses to do. During COVID, he decided that we Tanzanians won't go through a strict lockdown. We were allowed to continue with our economic activities, and that I also believe contributed a lot to stability economically during his term. So
thank you so much, Reeves Ngalema, for the explanations that you have provided. I'm being told that we're running
out of time.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time. That was Reeves Ngalema, a political analyst.
Okay.
On to the next story. The Vice President, Ambassador Dr. Emmanuel Nchimbi, is expected to grace the International Day of Forest celebration and tree planting campaign on March 19th this year in the Lindi region, where the celebrations will be held at the national level. Speaking to journalists, the Lindi Regional Commissioner Zainab Tellak calls on the citizens on the region and neighboring regions to come in large numbers.
Shughuli hizi zitafanyika kwenye viwanja vyetu vya Ilulu.
These activities will take place at our Ilulu grounds. We invite all residents of the Lindi region to come and join the Vice President in marking this World Tree Planting Day, which will be commemorated nationally in our region. There will be various activities at the venue, including live wild animals that will be brought to the grounds, as well as exhibitions from different stakeholders involved in forestry activities.
On the other hand, Daniel Charles, who is the acting director of the Department of Forest and Bees, Ministry of Natural Resources and Tourism, says more than 100 million trees have been planted across the country for the period from January to March this year.
As the slogan says, forests are economy. Therefore, we should use the forest resources we have in a sustainable way so that we can boost the national economy and benefit every citizen. We are providing education and raising awareness on how to add value of forest products.
Kwa hiyo tunatoa elimu na kuhamasisha namna gani ya kuongeza thamani mazao ya misitu.
Need has been raised in ensuring and strengthening access to justice for all women and girls by promoting inclusive and equitable legal systems, eliminating discriminatory laws, and through addressing structural barriers. The 70th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, CSW70, is being held at the United Nations headquarters in New York. And earlier today, STEM, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics issues were discussed. To discuss more on the meeting, I am joined live with Engineer Upendo Haule, who is the former Women Chapter Chairperson and the National ICT Broadband Backbone Project Manager at TTCL. Engineer Upendo, welcome to TBC News tonight.
Thank you very much.
Engineer Upendo, can you kindly tell us, this year's session marks another milestone for the global women's movement. From the discussion so far, what real progress has the world made in advancing the status of women?
Actually, in advancing the status of women access, it has advanced much more, especially on education and legal reforms. As such, we find that more than 100 countries have came up with different reforms enacting for women and to reduce the barriers on the women's side.
Mm-hmm. And one of the key... And one of the key concerns globally is leaving no woman behind. So how is the discussions now addressing the needs of women in rural areas, women with disability, and those that are actually affected by conflicts?
Mostly it's about how to reach those women and children who are on those discriminated areas. First of all, how to reach them. And we find there are a couple of different organizations which are trying to reach those women and enable them with legal access in different ways. So the more call is to enable those organizations which are trying to cater and reach those women on those challenging areas, on the rural areas and the areas which has war victims. And it's another call also to different governments to ensure that those women in those areas, disabled areas, they are really accessible. They get the access to the legal issues, and also on the education side, they get access, even on the issues of technology, to ensure that those women on those disabled areas, they get access. So that once they get access to legal issues, once they get access to technology, once they get access to education, is when now we can now upgrade and enable the status of those women on those areas.
Now, with the great work that is being done to ensure that women, even in rural areas, are able to access the legal services, now the world is actually becoming more digital, and technology can actually be used to both empower and harm. So what recommendations are emerging to ensure digital platforms support rather than undermining women's progress?
First of all, as we see now, the global towards technology, there are really many innovations which are coming up, but now we need to have the technologies which enact and enable those women to get really access, and having different kinds of platforms which stimulate and elaborate to women to get the access to technology, which enable them in different kinds of life which they are facing. So there is a call upon the innovators, technologists, to ensure that there are a couple of innovations which are addressing the women challenges in those different places.
Mm-hmm. That was Engineer Upendo Haule. Thank you so much for your time and for the explanations that you have provided. On to the next story. The government has issued 8 strategic guidelines for companies which have minority shareholding, aimed at enhancing their performance and increasing their contribution to the national economy towards a 2050 development vision. The guidelines were issued by the Finance Minister, Dr. Hamis Musa Omar, while opening the Minority Interest Directors Forum 2026 in Arusha region.
This is where we need deliberate shift of directors' mindsets and mode of operations from traditional oversight towards foresight-driven leadership. Let me emphasize anticipation, agility, and innovation. This needs optimization of every investment in your companies to yield optimum financial and economic returns. You need to realign your future, that is your corporation's future, with the transformative aspirations enshrined in DIRA 2050. Boardrooms must be forward-thinking and proactive and embracing emerging opportunities, technological advancement, and general modernization of our corporations.
He furthermore stresses that achieving Vision 2050 requires effective investment and effective management to build a $1 trillion economy by 2050.
This level of investment is a testimony of government's trust and commitment in partnering with private sector. We witness a steady growth of dividends contribution from the minority companies to the consolidated fund through the Office of Treasury Registrar, which has grown the dividend, which has grown from shillings 58.26 billion in 2020 to 266.52 billion shillings in 2024.
Furthermore, the Treasury Registrar Nehemiah Mchachu confirms a significant rise in government investments.
At a time of profound transformation, the role of board and the executive must evolve. Oversight, it remains essential, but it is the foresight that will determine whether our institutions merely endure change or lead it. In today's rapidly evolving economy and technological landscape, leadership can no longer be defined to overseeing the present only. It must anticipate the future, and institutions that cultivate foresight, agility, and innovation will not only withstand transformational pressure, but they will shape the path of the progress.
And that marks the end of the news bulletin for tonight. Do not miss our next bulletin in Kiswahili at 11 p.m. On behalf of the whole team, I am Caroline Maleo, wishing you an amazing night.
TBC1, ukweli na uhakika.
Kipindi hiki kinaletwa kwenu kwa ushirikiano wa TBC1 na Tume ya Taifa ya Mipango.
Katika uchumi wa kisasa, ushindani haupimwi kwa wingi wa mazao pekee, bali kwa ubora na thamani. Dira ya Taifa ya Maendeleo 2050 inalenga